The impossible discovery: the Valdrine Empire had ruled the galactic sector for over 8,000 years. Their dominance was not built on conquest alone, but on something far more powerful: control of technology itself. Every species that reached for the stars did so under Valdrine supervision. Every ship design was approved by their engineers. Every power system was licensed through their regulatory council. This was not tyranny, the Valdrine insisted. This was order. This was safety. This was the only way to prevent catastrophic accidents that could tear holes in reality itself. Admiral Kelroth stood on the command deck of the Imperial Enforcer, watching the stars drift past in their familiar patterns. He was a career officer, 300 cycles of service behind him, and in all that time he had never questioned the order of things. The Valdrine way was the right way. It had to be. 8,000 years of peaceful expansion proved it. His scales gleamed under the soft purple lighting of the bridge, and his 6 fingers drummed thoughtfully against the armrest of his command chair. The sensor officer's voice cut through his thoughts. "Admiral, we are detecting an unauthorized vessel in Sector 917. The ship is not broadcasting any identification codes." Kelroth's head turned sharply. Sector 917 was deep in restricted space, far from any approved travel lanes. Only Valdrine military vessels were permitted in that region. Pirates, perhaps? He asked. The sensor officer hesitated. "Unknown, Admiral." The signature is unlike anything in our database. Kel Roth felt a stirring of interest. In 3 centuries, he had seen every type of ship the galaxy had to offer. Smugglers with modified engines, rebels with stolen military craft, even ancient derelicts from species long extinct. But something new? That was rare indeed. Plot an intercept course. Maximum speed. Let us see who dares to violate Imperial space. The Imperial Enforcer was a magnificent vessel, over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and shielded by energy barriers that could withstand the blast of a dying star. Around it, 5 escort cruisers moved in perfect formation. This was the iron fist of Valdrine authority, and it had never failed to bring compliance. As they closed on the target, Kelroth studied the holographic display. The unknown ship was small, perhaps 400 meters in length. Its design was angular and strange, with none of the elegant curves that characterized proper starship engineering. It looked almost primitive, like something assembled by a species just learning to leave their homeworld. But the power readings made no sense. "Scan again," Kelroth ordered. "There must be an error." "Admiral, the readings are confirmed. That vessel is generating 0.7 on the Valdrine energy scale." "That is impossible," Kelroth said flatly. "A ship that size cannot mount generators capable of that output. The laws of thermodynamics forbid it. The heat dispersal alone would melt the hull dot." The sensor officer looked up, confusion clear on his scaled face. "Nevertheless, Admiral, that is what we are detecting. The energy signature is stable, continuous, and far beyond what any known technology should allow." Kelroth felt something he had not experienced in decades: uncertainty. He pushed it aside. There would be a logical explanation. Perhaps their sensors were being spoofed. Perhaps this was some kind of elaborate hoax. "Open a communication channel." The channel opened, and Kelroth spoke with the full authority of the Empire behind his words. "Unknown vessel, you have violated Valdrine restricted space. This is a severe infraction of galactic law. Power down your engines immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection. You have 30 seconds to comply." The response came quickly, translated through the universal language protocols. The voice was calm, almost friendly. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. We were not aware we had entered restricted territory. Our navigation charts show this region as unclaimed space." We mean no disrespect to Valdrine authority. Earth. Kelroth searched his memory and found nothing. He gestured to his intelligence officer, who quickly consulted the Imperial database. A moment later, the officer reported, "Admiral, Earth is listed as a fringe world in the outer spiral arm. The species is classified as pre-contact. According to our records, they achieved basic fusion propulsion approximately 200 cycles ago, but were deemed technologically insufficient for full galactic integration. They should not possess faster-than-light capability. Pre-contact species did not build ships with energy outputs that rivaled Imperial battle cruisers." Kelroth's uncertainty deepened into something closer to alarm. "Captain Vasquez, your vessel is in violation of multiple technological treaties. Your power systems exceed legal parameters by a factor of 20. You will submit to immediate inspection, or we will be forced to disable your ship and tow it to the nearest Imperial facility." There was a pause. When the human captain spoke again, her tone had changed. It was still polite, but there was steel underneath. "Captain Kelroth, with respect, we are not signatories to your treaties. Earth is a sovereign world, and the horizon's edge is the property of the United Earth Space Command. We have broken no laws because we never agreed to your laws. We will not submit to boarding." Kelroth felt his patience fraying. In 8,000 years, no species had defied the Empire and prospered. This human, from a world that should barely be capable of reaching its own moon, was refusing a direct order from an Imperial admiral. It was unthinkable. "Tactical. Prepare a warning shot. Target their engine section with a low power pulse. Let us remind them of their situation." The weapons officer worked his console. "Firing in 3, 2, 1. A beam of concentrated energy lanced across space. A brilliant blue streak designed to pass within meters of the human ship's engine array. It was meant to intimidate, to show the vast gulf between their capabilities. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The human ship moved. Not with thrusters or conventional engines, but with an instantaneous shift that defied physics. One moment it was in the path of the beam, the next it was 500 meters to starboard. The targeting computers shrieked alarms, unable to track the movement. It was as if the ship had simply decided to be somewhere else, and reality had agreed. What just happened? Kelroth demanded. The tactical officer was frantically reviewing data. "Admiral, the human vessel executed a point-to-point translation. No acceleration curve, no energy buildup, just instantaneous repositioning. That should not be possible. Spatial inertia alone would tear any ship apart attempting such a maneuver." On the horizon's edge, Captain Elena Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. Her crew had performed perfectly. The jump drive, humanity's greatest achievement, had worked exactly as designed. She opened the channel again. "Admiral Kelroth, I will say this once more. We are not your subjects. We will not submit to your authority. If you fire on us again, we will consider it an act of war." Kelroth stared at the holographic display where the human ship now floated, completely undamaged and clearly capable of evading any attack he could launch. For the first time in his long career, he felt genuinely afraid. This was not a primitive species stumbling into territory they did not understand. This was something far more dangerous. This was a species that had developed technology that Valjean did not control, could not predict, and clearly did not understand. "All ships, combat formation," he ordered. "Prepare full spectrum assault. If they move again, I want weapons locked on their new position within milliseconds." Around the Imperial Enforcer, the escort cruisers moved into attack positions. Hundreds of weapons charged, ready to unleash devastation. But even as they moved, the sensor officer called out another alarm. "Admiral, the human ship's power output just increased. They are now at 1.2 on the Valdrine scale. That was more energy than 3 Imperial battlecruisers combined. From a ship barely 400 meters long, Kelroth realized with sudden, terrible clarity that everything he knew about technology, about physics, about the order of the galaxy, was wrong. Or rather, it was incomplete. The Valdrine had spent 8,000 years perfecting their understanding of how ships should work. They had created laws and regulations based on what they believed was possible, but the humans had never read those laws. They had never accepted those limitations. They had built their ships according to their own understanding, their own needs, their own desperate ingenuity. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. Captain Vasquez's voice came through the channel one final time, and now there was no mistaking the warning in her tone. "Admiral, the Horizon's Edge mounts defensive systems you have never encountered. Our shields operate on principles your scientists have not discovered. Our weapons utilize forces your engineers believe are purely theoretical. We did not come here to fight, but we are prepared to defend ourselves. I strongly suggest you withdraw and contact your superiors. Tell them that humanity is claiming its place among the stars, and we will not ask permission to do so." Kelroth looked at his tactical display. 6 Valdrine warships against 1 human vessel. By every measure of logic, of experience, of 8,000 years of military doctrine, he should attack. He should destroy this upstart species and their impossible ship. He should send a message that defiance of the Empire would not be tolerated. Asterisk. But he was not a fool. He had not survived 300 cycles by ignoring obvious truths. And the truth was simple. He had no idea what the human ship was capable of. He had no idea how they had achieved what they had achieved. And most terrifying of all, he had no idea how many more ships like this one humanity possessed. "All vessels, fall back to defensive perimeter," he ordered quietly. "Communications, open an emergency quantum channel to High Command. Priority Alpha level." The bridge fell silent. Every officer understood what that meant. Priority Alpha was reserved for threats to the Empire itself. For invasions, rebellions, catastrophic disasters. For things that could shake the foundations of Valdrine civilization. A small human ship from a world the Empire had dismissed as primitive had just become a priority Alpha threat. As the Imperial enforcer and its escorts withdrew to a safe distance, Kelroth began composing his report. He chose each word carefully, knowing that what he wrote would reach the Supreme Council itself. But no matter how he phrased it, the message was the same. The humans have technology we cannot explain. They have capabilities we cannot match. They have broken every rule we thought governed reality. And they are not asking for our approval. They are simply taking their place in the galaxy, and there may be nothing we can do to stop them. The Horizon's Edge hung in space, its exotic engines humming with barely contained power. Inside, Captain Vasquez looked at her crew. They had done it. They had faced down the most powerful empire in the known galaxy and survived. More than survived. They had won. But as she looked at the retreating Valdrine ships, she knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Now they would have to live with the consequences. She just hoped Earth was ready for what came next, because the Empire would not forget this day, and neither would any other species watching from the shadows, wondering what these strange humans had done and how they had done it. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk. The truth unveiled the Valdrine Supreme Council. Chamber was a masterpiece of architectural grandeur. Carved from a single massive crystal that had taken 2 centuries to shape, it rose 300 meters into the sky, its walls refracting light into patterns that represented the harmony and order of the Empire. Today, that harmony was shattered. The 12 members of the Council sat in their elevated seats, arranged in a perfect circle around the central platform. Below them, Admiral Kelroth stood alone, his report hovering in holographic form above his head for all to see. Supreme Chancellor Veron spoke first, his voice heavy with disbelief. Admiral Kelroth, you are asking us to believe that a species we classified as technologically primitive has created a vessel that outperforms our finest warships. You understand how this sounds? It sounds impossible, Kelroth replied evenly. I would not believe it myself if I had not witnessed it. But the data does not lie. The human ship moved without acceleration. It generated power that should have melted its hull. It evaded our weapons as if they were mere inconveniences. Counselor Threxus, the Empire's chief scientist, leaned forward. His eyes gleamed with fascination rather than fear. Show us the power signature analysis again. The hologram shifted, displaying the energy readings from the horizon's edge. Threxus studied the patterns, his expression growing more troubled by the second. This is not fusion, he muttered. It is not antimatter containment either, though there are elements of both. There is something else here, something woven into the fundamental structure of their power generation. It is as if they are drawing energy from multiple sources simultaneously and harmonizing them in ways our theories say should create catastrophic interference. They should destroy themselves, agreed Counselor Merith. Yet they do not. Which means either our understanding of physics is incomplete, or the humans have discovered something we missed. The silence that followed was profound. The Valdrine Empire had built its dominance on the certainty of their scientific knowledge. They were the masters of technology, the arbiters of what was possible. To admit they might be wrong, that they might have overlooked something fundamental, was to question 8,000 years of civilization. Chancellor Veron broke the silence. We must know how they did this. Admiral Kelroth, you say the human captain refused to submit to inspection? She did, Chancellor. Quite firmly. Then we will compel her. Prepare a battle fleet. 20 ships, full military configuration. We will surround this human vessel and give them a choice. Share their technology or be destroyed. Counselor Draxus, the oldest member of the council, raised a hand. His voice was soft but carried weight that came from 5 centuries of service. And if we cannot destroy them? What if their defensive capabilities match their power generation? What if we send 20 ships and they disable or destroy them all? The question hung in the air like poison. Kelroth had wondered the same thing during his long journey back to the homeworld. He had run simulations, analyzed every scrap of data. The results were deeply troubling. Before anyone could respond, a communication alert chimed through the chamber. A junior officer appeared in holographic form, bowing deeply. Forgive the interruption, Supreme Council, but we have received a transmission from the human vessel. They are requesting permission to approach Valdrine Prime and address the Council directly. The audacity of it took everyone's breath away. The human ship was still in Sector 917, deep in restricted space. And now they wanted to come to the heart of the Empire itself? Chancellor Veron's scales flushed dark with anger. They violate our laws, refuse our authority, and now they demand an audience? The arrogance is breathtaking. Perhaps Counselor Draxus said quietly, we should hear what they have to say. We have spent this entire session discussing the humans as if they were a problem to be solved. But they are people, with their own story, their own reasons. Understanding them might serve us better than threatening them. The debate raged for another hour, but in the end, curiosity won over pride. The Council agreed to allow the human ship to approach under strict monitoring. If they showed any hostile intent, the planetary defense grid would reduce them to atoms. 3 days later, the Horizon's Edge entered orbit around Valdrine Prime. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the shuttle bay, checking her uniform one final time. She was about to walk into the heart of an empire that viewed her people as primitive upstarts. Her second officer, Commander James Park, stood beside her. "You do not have to do this alone, Captain. We could send a full delegation." Elena shook her head. "No, this needs to be personal. They need to see that we are not just our technology. We are people who built it out of necessity, out of desperation, out of hope. Besides," she added with a slight smile, "if they wanted us dead, they would have fired already." The shuttle descended through layers of atmospheric shields and traffic control systems so sophisticated they made Earth's best networks look like children's toys. Valdrine Prime was a world of impossible beauty. Cities that stretched to the horizon, towers that pierced the clouds, gardens that bloomed with plants from 1,000 worlds. This was what 8,000 years of uninterrupted peace and prosperity looked like. Elena felt a pang of envy, quickly suppressed. Earth had not been so fortunate. The council chamber doors opened before her, and Elena walked into the crystal hall. The light was almost blinding, but she kept her eyes forward, her posture straight. 12 alien faces looked down at her, unreadable and ancient. She stopped at the center platform and waited. Chancellor Veron spoke first. "Captain Vasquez, you stand before the Supreme Council of the Valdrine Empire. You have violated our laws, refused our lawful orders, and demonstrated technology that should not exist. Explain yourself." Elena took a deep breath. "With respect, Chancellor, I will explain everything. But first, I need you to understand something about humanity. We are not rebels. We are not criminals. We are survivors." The holographic display activated at her command. Images appeared above her head, Earth as seen from space, beautiful and blue. Then the images changed. War, nuclear fire, cities reduced to ash, billions dead in the span of decades. "This was Earth 300 years ago," Elena said quietly. "We nearly destroyed ourselves. We came so close to extinction that for 50 years our population was under 1 billion. We had lost most of our technology, most of our knowledge, most of our hope. But we survived. And when we finally looked up at the stars again, we made a choice. We would never be that vulnerable again. We would never put all our survival in one fragile basket." The images shifted again, showing humanity's desperate expansion into space. Colonies on Mars and the Moon, built with salvage technology and sheer determination. Asteroid mining operations that looked more like suicide missions than industrial ventures. And then the great ships, built in secret, designed in isolation, powered by theories that Earth scientists had developed in the dark years when they had nothing left to lose. We did not have the luxury of following established rules. Elena continued. We did not have mentors to guide us or allies to protect us. We had ourselves and the absolute certainty that if we did not reach the stars, if we did not spread across multiple systems, the next catastrophe would end us forever. So we built ships that could go farther, faster, and survive more than anything else in the galaxy. We built them because we had to. Counselor Threxus leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overriding protocol. "Your power systems," he said eagerly. "How do you achieve such energy density without thermal cascade?" Elena smiled. "We do not avoid the thermal cascade. We use it. Our fusion cores are designed to operate at the edge of criticality, contained by magnetic fields that flex and adapt in real time. When excess heat builds up, we channel it directly into our antimatter reserves, using it to accelerate particle collision. The energy release feeds back into the magnetic containment, creating a self-reinforcing loop. That should create runaway feedback," Threxus protested. "It should explode." "It does," Elena said simply. "About once every microsecond. But we have learned to ride those explosions, to harvest them. to turn catastrophic failure into continuous power. Our ships do not avoid danger. They embrace it, control it, and make it work for them. The council chamber fell silent. What Elena was describing was madness, a power system built on the principle of controlled destruction, walking a knife edge between infinite energy and total annihilation every fraction of a second. It violated every safety protocol that Valdrine had established. And it worked. It worked spectacularly. Chancellor Veyron found his voice. And your instantaneous movement? Your ability to evade our weapons? That is even more complex, Elena admitted. But the principle is the same. You build your ships to avoid stress, to minimize gravitational shear, to protect your crews from the violence of acceleration. We build our ships to endure it. Our jump drives do not move us through space. They compress space itself, creating temporary gravitational wells that we fall through. For a fraction of a second, my ship experiences forces that would crush any normal vessel. But we built it to survive. You are describing technology that treats physics as an obstacle to overcome, rather than a law to obey. Counselor Merith said slowly. That is because physics is not a law, Elena replied. It is a description of how the universe behaves under normal circumstances. But circumstances do not have to be normal. If you can create the right conditions, even briefly, you can do things that seem impossible. The implications were staggering. For 8,000 years, the Valdrine had refined their technology, making it safer, more efficient, more elegant. They had created a civilization built on stability and control. But in doing so, they had also created limitations. They had decided what was possible and what was not, and they had stopped looking beyond those boundaries. Humanity, desperate and isolated, had no such limitations. They had built their technology on the edge of disaster, because that was the only place they could survive. And in doing so, they had discovered possibilities the Valdrine had never imagined. Chancellor Veyron stood, his expression unreadable. Captain Vasquez, the council must deliberate. You will remain on Valdrine Prime as our guest until we decide how to proceed. Elena nodded. I understand, Chancellor. But before I go, I want to make one thing clear. Humanity is not seeking conflict with the Valdrine Empire. We respect your achievements and your civilization, but we will not submit to your authority. We will not limit our technology to meet your comfort levels. We claim the right to exist, to expand, to build our future on our own terms. If you can accept that, then perhaps we can be allies. If not, she paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Then we will remain strangers, separated by the gap between what you believe is possible and what we have made real. She turned and walked from the chamber, leaving 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sitting in stunned silence. 3 weeks later, the Valdrine Supreme Council issued a historic declaration. The Empire would recognize Earth as a sovereign power. Trade negotiations would begin. Scientific exchange programs would be established, with careful protocols to ensure both sides benefited. And most significantly, the technological treaties that had governed the galaxy for millennia would be revised. The humans had proven that the old rules were incomplete. Now the galaxy would have to learn new ones. Admiral Kelroth, promoted to Fleet Marshal for his handling of the first contact, stood beside Captain Vasquez at the signing ceremony. You have changed everything, he said quietly. I hope you understand the responsibility that comes with that. Elena looked out at the assembled delegates, representatives from dozens of species, all watching to see how the Valdrine and humans would coexist. We do, she replied. We changed everything once before when we nearly destroyed ourselves. We learned from that mistake. We will not repeat it. Kelroth studied her face, seeing the scars of a species that had touched the abyss and pulled back. Perhaps that was humanity's real strength, not their impossible technology. but their memory of what it cost to develop it as the ceremony concluded and the treaty was sealed. The horizon's edge hung in orbit above Valdrine Prime, its exotic engines humming with barely restrained power. It was no longer alone. 3 more human ships had arrived, each one as impossible as the first. And back in Earth space, the shipyards were working at full capacity, building more. The galaxy had spent 8,000 years believing it understood the rules. Humanity had arrived to rewrite them. And as the Valdrine looked up at those strange, powerful ships, they realized something profound. Technology was not about following rules. It was about survival, adaptation, and the courage to try things that should not work. The humans had that courage because they had no choice. Now, perhaps, the rest of the galaxy could learn from them. The age of Valdrine dominance was not over, but it was no longer absolute. A new power had emerged, built not on conquest or control, but on the desperate ingenuity of a species that refused to die. And together, Valdrine and human, ancient empire and young upstart, they would face whatever challenges the galaxy held. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in millennia, it was also thrilling. The impossible had become possible, and nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk.